We're going to be looking back at the Dublin Racing Festival. I've asked the lads to pick me out a best performance of the weekend and a worst. So Barry, I'm going to start with you, your highlight of the weekend.
I was really impressed with Fabiolo. I thought in the build-up that was the rest of the season, to get such a group of novices together like that. And then the gallop that went with Place Dynamo. Fabiola was the only horse in his comfort zone who could travel at that pace. His jumping was better, albeit he missed the fourth last. He will learn from that. He could put a lot of horses on the ground, but just the natural pace he showed. As I say, given improvement in his jumping, I thought that was a big performance.
Does that make you nervous when we look ahead to Jonbon, if he's going to take him on?
Well, the clash, obviously, it's based on the form from Aintree when there's just a neck between them. Jonbon's jumping is, I would say, more assured, as in more, he's been brilliant. He's like lightning over a fence, very measured, seems to know what he's doing. I can't say the same for Fabiolo, but there's very little between them in hurdle form. It'll be interesting to see when they do square up. I'd have, obviously, as a senior jockey or as an ex-senior jockey, I'd rather go around in Jonbon than Fabiolo maybe. But it'll be just interesting to see how if that match happens, and hopefully does.
I think if you're asking yourself about the two horses going chasing, has Fences made one of them definitely better? You'd say it's definitely made Jonbon better.
Yeah.
He's definitely a better chaser because of how good and how sure-footed he's been fencing. There's no doubt that Fabiolo is probably, I wouldn't say a less experienced horse in terms of he didn't do as many runs over hurdles. And you'd think, oh, maybe he might be open to more improvement, and his jumping might be open to more improvement as well. But there is no doubt that Jonbon is a better chaser than he was a hurdler, because he's better at getting from A to B over fences than some horses that go chasing.
So at this stage, would you rather be siding with, because just looking at the prices here with us at William Hill of non-runner money back, Jonbon is currently the even money favourite for the Arkle. Fabiolo into 6-4 now, but Fabiolo, as Barry said, he's got that bit of improvement to come now in the jumping. So would you rather side with the horse that's completely sure-footed at this stage, or one that, he could be anything if he just brushes that up?
If is a very big word. And he is talented, there's no doubt about that. I suppose the one area for improvement potentially with him is they met last season in Aintree. Fabiolo was 5, Jonbon was 6. So there's potential for improvement in that year. More improvement saying Fabiolo's 5 to 6 than Jonbon 6 to 7. But there's no doubt, as AP said, Jonbon has a far better technique over a fence and is definitely a better chaser than he was a hurdler. There's a little bit of an uncertainty, if you like, with Fabiolo. His jumping needs to be as good as it is and better. Cheltenham is a trickier track than Leopardstown, so it's going to be a proper test for him.
It's going to be a proper test, proper race.
I think if you were riding or owned or trained either horse, you could make yourself a good case for thinking my horse has got a better chance of winning.
Yeah.
You know, if you're a Jonbon, you're riding, you say, his jumping has been so much better over fences, and he's a better horse because of that. And you're looking at Fabiolo, I believe he was only just beaten by him at Aintree, and you think, he's, Barry said, only a 5-year-old, he could keep improving, and there's a case. If you're an owner, trainer, or jockey, you could make a good, strong case for either.
And those prices are probably reflective.
Yeah, like I say, they're probably accurate, really, aren't they? I mean, there's not that much of a disparity between them, really. Like I say, you can make the case for both. But Fabiolo's Barry's highlight, AP, who was yours?
I was impressed with Mighty Potter. I think really the only time he blew out was in the Supreme, wasn't it? And he was good in the Drinmore. He looked pretty sure-footed, going round in a race, obviously, that was Gordon Elliott against
Mullins Battalion.
Willie Mullins Battalion, but just away from the last to the winning post, he kept going pretty strongly. He looked a horse that going to the turners, he'll take a lot of beating, I'd say. I think it'll be interesting to see what will happen with the horses that ran in the 2 mile. They appreciate it, and Banbridge, and I think Banbridge will definitely step with him, Trip, listening to Joseph O'Brien, and he'll definitely be better on better ground, and I'm sure he'll get closer to him on better ground than he did in the Drinmore. But there is a lot to like about Mighty Potter. He was pretty professional, and that's the only little worry you have. Just a younger horse, whatever. What happened to him in the Supreme? But everyone's allowed one bad day on this, so we can forgive him one.
And you rode him out in the week.
I did. I rode him on his final piece of work. And
is that it then, Barry?
Magic final touches.
No, I'd have said the opposite. He impressed me. I was blown away by him. I loved him in Farias. I loved him in Downroyal. I loved him last season until he bombed out in Cheltenham. And you'd have to forgive him that. As AP says, you can forgive anyone one bad day. So I thought he jumped better in Down Royal and jumped better in Ferios. He stumbled at the back of the third last and fourth last in Ferios, and you forgive him those. They were only just simple, innocent things to do. But I think it was the second fence in the race, the second fence away from the stands, he put down on Davy. He was a little untidy at the fourth last and the last. He can jump better. So I've thought maybe my excess weight, if you want, in the work might have just put a bit more pressure on him. But I think he can jump better. I think maybe he just could have had a little niggle somewhere.
Is ground an issue for him or not really? No?
Not for me. I think he's very straightforward. He obviously wouldn't want it quick, but I'd imagine just ground on the safe side, on the slow side, ideal for him, or he'd going soft. But very, very classy horse. But I think his jumping can be better than we saw at the weekend, which would even make him more exciting. So I had El Fabiolo, but Mighty Potter would have been a short head. He'd be a short head second. He's definitely
second. We'll take that. Now, two very good performances, but obviously we did have some notable flops at short prices all the same. So your flop of the weekend?
I think we were both going for the same one with Fashal Vega because of the profile, and obviously he won the Cheltenham bumper and he'd been impressive. Well, he won his novice hurls and that, and I suppose
he beat the winner last time out.
I suppose the profile of him and all that, he was an obvious flop, and the big question is now, is William Mullins is a genius of a trainer, we all know that, but to get him back after such a blowout, that short time before Cheltenham, it ain't going to be straightforward from him. And even knowing, I actually thought for a long time that he'd go for the Ballymore. It was never mentioned, but I wonder will it enter his head now, or will he just still try and think about the Supreme again? But he's got a bit of work to do with him, that's for sure, hasn't he? I
think he has, and it isn't straightforward. I think he probably wants softer ground over two, or like AP, I'd step him up and trip on better ground. He dropped in on his bumpers. He dropped right in when he won the festival bumper. He's run 3 times over hurdles and he's made the running. I wonder, would they regret that tactic from the start? It's very hard to put the genie back in the bottle. When you have a horse make the run like that, it's habitual. And it's harder to get them to relax. You don't get to control the race every day. You're a hostage to fortune. And he was taken on by Joseph's horse and set him alight. Paul couldn't get him back switched off when that horse checked out at the one down the back. So he didn't have the control of the horse or the race that he would have liked. So there's a certain level of forgiveness, but to recover from bottoming out like that, as AP said, that's not straightforward.
No, not straightforward at all. Then he has been pushed out as well, 7-2 now from being the 4-6 favourite for the Supreme on the back of that disappointment as well. So both the lads in agreement there that Fashal Vega was the flop of the DRF, but 2 horses to go to war with from the back of Leopardstown for the Cheltenham Festival.